Hi everyone, Bernard here. I hope you're all staying safe and well, and welcome to the Citizen channel and part 2, yes, of our special Kiddo goodbye and thank you little features, a little tribute to him as he obviously has left City after 12 years as a whatever he was at City, whatever wonderful jobs he performed for the various managers, obviously, over the last 12 years. So this is part 2 of the little tribute, and I've got to 1978-79, which is obviously sadly the season where he left City, but we'll have a talk about that anyway. So please, if you're new to the channel, push that subscribe button, push the bell notifications. On screen you'll see links to Facebook and Twitter. I do have a couple of little eBay shops as well where I sell DVDs, movie posters and board games as well, so if you have a look at those links as well, it'll be fantastic. And we'll check the playlist. There's loads of stuff on City, of course, but there's film and TV stuff as well, so if that's of any interest, have a look at that. And all your comments are very welcome out. Brian Kidd, any memories you got? As I said in part 1, it is a time when I probably went to see most City games home and away at these when Brian Kidd was playing. Obviously it was the years before marriage and business and work and kids obviously start affected my certainly away day travels. I certainly went to a lot of home games, but I didn't get to quite as many as away games as I wanted to, but that's life, isn't it? But there you go. So yeah, any comments you want to make, please. Hope you enjoy this part 2 of this little feature, and thumbs up. It gives a thumbs up, fantastic. Getting it. I've just checked part 1 as I'm doing this. I'm getting quite a few thumbs up on there for that one, so much appreciated. Right, yeah. So yeah, it all seemed well set, didn't it? And we left part 1 for the 1978-79 season. He'd finished the last 2 seasons as City's top scorer, and in the 78-79 yearbook, which I'm going to quote from here, which is obviously everything. There was no hint of what was going to happen during this season on and off the pitch, which obviously was the changes, obviously not just as far as Brian Kidd was concerned, but obviously to the club as well. But yeah, day in the life of Brian Kidd. I'm just going to read from there where he sort of talks about a typical day when he's playing at Main Road. When we're at Main Road, I generally leave home about 1 PM, ready to report at the ground for the pre-match briefing at 1:45 PM. Oh, for all these 3 o'clock kickoffs now, they wouldn't be able to cope in those days, would they? Living on the north side of Manchester, I have to come right through the city centre, and there's always plenty of atmosphere to get you in the right frame of mind. City fans are parading through the streets in their scarves, and very occasionally there is the odd skirmish when they meet the rival supporters on the way from station to ground. But in the main, City fans are a good lot, and we have little trouble home and away. Yeah, well, yeah, wasn't the greatest times to travel, but hey, we got on with it. As you get near the Main Road, so the tempo of the build-up increases. Fans spot you in the car and they are blues. It's cheers all the way. From the rival camp, they'll just boo you till you're out of sight, but then that's all part of the fascination of football. Inside Main Road, there's a hum of activity, and as the countdown to kick-off begins, manager Tony Buck and chief coach Bill Taylor, he also left this season, give their tactical talk in the players' lounge, and then it's down to the comparative peace and quiet in the dressing room. Generally, I don't start getting stripped until about 2:20, and while other players are doing stretching exercise, I prefer to sit and have a quiet read of the paper. All the time you can hear the steady influx of fans into the ground as the kick-off time approaches. The adrenaline starts to flow, then it's onto the corridor and down that long tunnel to the pitch for a tremendous greeting from City's rapid growing army of fans. Yeah, we were doing very well supporter-wise as well, as we've talked about in part 1, didn't we? You've seen Brian Kidd give his all for City in the heat of many memorable matches, but how does City's number 9 relax afterwards? Well, says Brian, once the game is over and we have showered and changed back into civvies, it's back upstairs to the players' lounge for a welcome drink with opposing players. Perhaps some of them you have played against many times, then there are others who are one-time colleagues at other clubs. The players' lounge is a place where we can swap stories about that day's match or one just gone by, even next week's fixtures, wherever that might be. By now the ground is empty and the last of the guests are departing. Outside it's comparatively quiet, except for a handful of autograph hunters. Were you one of those autograph hunters? I want to get home and get my bacon butties. And linger near the front entrance of the ground until they know the last part has departed. class player has departed for home. The journey home sees you catch up with the last of the departing fans. If you won, they like the players are in good spirits. Defeat is depressing for everyone. It certainly is, Brian. Once at home, I like to get my feet up for an hour. Then it's time to get ready and perhaps take my wife out for a meal with friends, or we might even have people round for a private dinner party at our place. Inevitably, the talk is of that day's match, as it will be for most of the weekend. Soon, though, the time comes around when you start to look ahead to another date, another Saturday. So there we go. That was a day in the life of Mr. Brian Kidd as a footballer in the late 70s. I'm sure things haven't changed much, but they probably have, haven't they? Yeah, so yeah, the season started really well for Brian Kidd, although it didn't start so well for City. Yeah, we drew at Derby 1-1. Then we drew at home to Arsenal 1-1. So obviously Kidd was playing against his old team. And obviously I'll tell you in a minute, he actually scored in that one as well. And we were followed by a home drubbing by Liverpool. Yes, 4-1 we lost to Liverpool. So yeah, but the good thing for Brian was he scored in all three of those games. So he actually scored the one goal each time for City. But yeah, Kidd had new competition that season. Gary Owen had been sort of moved up to a number 8 spot. Had been moved a bit further forward. We'd also signed the Fixtures brothers. There we go, Matt. That might be a feature in the future. The Fixtures brothers. And of course, Ron was the striker of the pair. He was the forward who could play number 9. And then obviously we added this season we added another guy who will be doing something on at some stage. Kazu Dana was added to the mix as well, although he struggled a little bit at first, but he was going to be added late as the season progressed. And then add to that, during the Liverpool game, Brian Kidd actually broke his toe and would actually miss a handful of games. So even though it started very well, obviously things started to go a little bit wrong. He came back in a 1-0 loss at Old Trafford at the end of September. But finally, we got through a first round of the UEFA Cup. Yeah, we got through against 20 Enschede, yeah, with a 3-2 win on aggregate. He scored in the home leg of that game, a 2-1 win. October 18th, City beat Standard Liège. Yeah, we were on a bit of run on this year, but 4-0, we Kidd getting 2 of those, and despite losing 2-0 away, obviously we went through 4-2 on aggregate. Unfortunately, and very sadly, the good run in the UEFA Cup wasn't replicated in the league, as we didn't actually win a game from the 21st of October to the 3rd of February. So from the 21st of October 1978 to the 3rd of February 1979. That's 13 league games. We drew some. We drew 3 or 4 or 5, but we didn't actually win any. But that sort of put pay to any title hopes that season. As I said, we were always one of the favourites for the title around in the mid to late 70s. But that put all pay to that possibility with that poor run. And perhaps that's where it all started to go wrong a little bit. Obviously, even though the European Cup, UEFA Cup run was very, very good, obviously off the pitch, the back room swales and the directors and things were moving in a different direction. And this is perhaps where it all started to go wrong for Brian and, of course, all other big name City players at the time as well. On the 23rd of November, Kidd and Power scored, yeah, in a fantastic 2-2 draw at AC Milan. I think that was a rearranged game, was it? Because of the weather. I remember listening to radio of the score of that one, on the radio to it, and actually we were 2-0 up, and we actually ended up being 2-2, but still a great result over in Milan. And he also he scored in that away tie with Paul Power, and he also scored in the 3-0 home leg win on December the 6th. So obviously we were doing okay in that. That wasn't the problem, obviously, but it set up a tie with the Bundesliga giants at the time, of course, Borussia Mönchengladbach. But it was sort of papering over the cracks. And in Tony Butt's column in the Match magazine against Nottingham Forest on the 23rd of December, just a couple of days before Christmas, he actually singled out Brian Kidd for criticism in his column after dropping him for the previous game. So I'm just going to quote from that, an excerpt from that. We have not been playing with the purpose and free movement that the City side is renowned. Our game is based on good passing, moments and plenty of mobility in all departments. It has not been consistently provided. It could be argued that I have not contributed always settling the side by making changes for reasons other than injury, but I am pursuing that aim of setting it down, and it will never be achieved. If players continue to give up and down displays after patience has been exhausted, I have always maintained that I am willing to give any senior player a chance to work poor form out of his system, but there comes a time when it has to be shown that a lack of consistency means there is a price to pay, and that player has to go and find his feet again, probably in the reserves. I sympathise greatly with Brian Kidd's situation. I omitted him from the lineup at QPR because he's not been getting into his usual groove, and the sparkle had been absent for several weeks. No one has tried harder to put his game right, and I'm aware that there are reasons why he has been thrown out of his stride. One of them, of course, was the toe fracture he received early in the season, from which he has never returned with the same impact that he's had on the side in the past. Brian's contribution to the Blues since I signed him was absolutely immense. There have been very little to fault in the way that he's played, and he has lived up to his job of getting goals by heading our scoring list for the last 2 seasons. But a failure to provide the attacking bite in several recent games had taken the edge off his confidence. I judged it was time for him to come out from under the pressure and to show the other players as well that a loss of form by anyone cannot be accepted indefinitely. So, yeah, a few little cracks there, wasn't there? A few little within that comment there. Obviously, say you only particularly single. You did mention that Casu Dana in that little article as well, but Brian Kidd was obviously singled out in that program feature. In all, Kidd was dropped for 4 games. And then he was substitute for a game against Leeds United on January the 13th. I think he had a bit of a point to prove that game, because he actually came on and scored City's goal in a 1-1 draw at Ellen Road. So yeah, I think he was probably his nose was a little bit out of joint. But add to this cocktail of problems, obviously, that Tony Buck talking. Yeah, a certain gentleman returned, didn't he, as a coach? Yeah, Mr. Obviously, the old coach Taylor went, and of course Malcolm Allison returned as coach, and of course things for Brian Kidd and plenty of others began to look even less certain. Kidd would actually start. Yeah, he would go on to play again. He would start in a further 10 games, including 3 FA Cup games in January, and importantly, the first leg of the Mönchengladbach game at Main Road. But sadly, it was a disappointing 1-1 draw, very disappointing that day, and that actually would be his actual last game for City starting in that match. His goal in a 3-0 win at Coventry previously on the 24th of February would be his last goal scored for City. And of course, Kidd didn't even get the chance to play against Mönchengladbach away. He didn't even get in the team for that one, a 3-1 loss. So we went out of that one 4-2 on aggregate. Or even 4 days later, obviously, he would have jumped at the chance at a visit to Highbury. He would have jumped at the chance to play against his old muckers at Arsenal, but he didn't even make that on the 24th of March. It's very sad, actually. There'll be an image on screen of his name in the programme for the Arsenal game, but the actual name has been, as we did in those days when we had programmes, we used to scribble through the players and put the subs on and stuff. So that's quite a poignant thing looking at that programme, and obviously seeing Kidd scribbled out and say he wasn't going to reappear, was he? So that was quite an interesting image to show that, I thought. Yeah, and Tony Henry was playing number 9, and that was the first, as far as I can see, that was the first and only time Tony Henry played number 9. But there you go, he was playing instead of Brian Kidd. And of course, things move quickly. Buck and Allison were playing a system not to Kidd's strengths. I think Kidd knew it, and obviously Tony Buck knew it. I'm sure Malcolm Allison knew it. And by the end of March, he'd moved to Everton. That was it. So by the end of March, he'd gone and moved to Everton. I mean, he wasn't overly impressed with what happened. He turned down a move to Sheffield United originally. He was unmoved from approaches by Stoke, Oldham and Sunderland that came quite quickly. But yeah, Everton jumped in at the last minute. They're talking about 150,000. They didn't balk at that sort of transfer fee. Of course, Kidd thought that was a worthy move, which probably was. Say Everton were a good team at the time, and still a big team. Big as they are a big team now. Yeah, so the revolution has started. I mean, obviously after Mr. Brian Kidd was gotten rid of, Ron Futcher soon left, Peter Barnes left, Gary Owen left, Dave Watson left, and Asa Hartford all left in the same season. So Mr. Allison was wielding the axe, wasn't he? Even though he was the coach, obviously. It would be the next season when he would take over from Tony Buck, of course. But it was all there. All the signs were there to see, weren't they? Let's be honest about it. And of course, Colin Bell would also call it a day. He actually managed a few games that season, but he would have to just give up on it. He couldn't do it. So for Brian Kidd, then a story really of almost, but not quite. So he almost fired us to that title in his very first season, didn't he? With when Liverpool picked us, you know, he sort of nearly did it for us that season. Such a shame. And then obviously the following season was a bit of a letdown. But yeah, he left when big changes were happening at Main Road. It wasn't particularly him, was it? It was obviously the mould of that Mr. Allison wanted, that's for sure. Unbeknown to all of us, obviously even worse times were going to be ahead for us, weren't they? And certainly in the early 80s, after a little bit of a brief respite with when Allison did go, etc. But we didn't. I had no idea, did we, of what was going to happen after that. But there you go. I say Brian. It wasn't particularly Brian Kidd. It was just the state of the club at the time, wasn't it? It's nothing to do with Brian Kidd. I mean, he did go on to play for Everton. He scored for Everton. He scored for Bolton. He went to Bolton, scored goals there, and he actually finished his career scoring goals in the United States. And he'd sort of hinted at that a few years before. He might like to go over to America. For City, he made 157 total appearances and won as sub, and he scored 57 goals. So that's not a bad return, was it? Of course, I was lucky enough to see the vast majority of those games and goals, apart from that Juventus one that I mentioned in part one, where I was Juventus at Main Road, where I was actually in Italy when we played Juventus at Main Road. But there you go. And it's such a shame he didn't win anything with us as a player anyway, but anything with City. And it was, of course, a great pleasure for me and many City fans to pull on the sky blue shirt. And I don't think he ever gave less than 100% when he was on that pitch. Of course, he would see more off-field glory, wouldn't he, with United and, of course, with us over the last 12 years. And I'm sure we all wish him a long life and healthy. I was going to say retirement, but he's hinted that he's not ready to retire yet. Although obviously, obviously things with this COVID have affected him. But whatever he wants to do anyway, let's long life and a very healthy future for Brian Kidd. I think we all wish him that. Yep, Brian Kidd, the darling of the Stretford end. But more importantly, in King Colin's absence, a worthy stand-in for the King of the Kippax, wasn't he? Brian Kidd. Thanks for joining me anyway. I hope you enjoyed this little tribute to Kiddo, and I'm sure we'll see more of him over the next few years. I'm sure he'll come to the Etihad many times. Well, I hope he does anyway. I'm sure he will. He'll probably get a seat, won't he? They all get a little seat and a season card, don't they? So he'll probably get that. Anyway, thanks for watching today, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. What are we going to do this today? Have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More importantly, let's all look after each other till we meet here again on the Citizen channel, or perhaps have a flick across, have a look at my film and TV channel. I only ever ask one thing: stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.